And who do they owe? Did you know that the world's total debt is now higher than the global economy itself? In 2021, it reached a staggering $296 trillion, which is over 350% of global GDP. That's more than 3 times the money the entire planet produces every year. Yet, even the wealthiest countries, like the US, are drowning in debt. The United States alone owes a jaw-dropping $32 trillion, and this number is growing every second. But who exactly do countries owe all this money to? It's not just banks. It's the IMF, foreign governments, private investors, and sometimes even their own citizens. And here's the twist: the more they borrow, the deeper they fall into the debt trap, with consequences that ripple across their economies and the lives of their people. In this video, we're going to uncover the truth behind this global debt crisis. We'll dive into who's really pulling the strings, how this debt cycle started, and whether any nation can ever break free. Stick around, because some of what you'll hear will completely change the way you look at your country's economy. Chapter 1: The Global Debt Crisis, a hidden pandemic. Debt is a global issue. While most people focus on the day-to-day struggles of their own finances, the debts of entire nations fly under the radar. In 2021, global debt reached a staggering $296 trillion, which is more than 350% of the world's GDP. It's like the world owes way more than it makes. What's even scarier is that many countries, even powerful ones, are drowning in debt. The US alone owes around $32 trillion, and this number keeps growing. How did we get here? It all started decades ago when countries began borrowing money to finance wars, public projects, and economic growth. But over time, these debts became unmanageable, and the problem spread. The pandemic only made things worse. As economies shut down, countries borrowed more to survive, and now we face a global financial crisis. The bigger issue is that debt isn't just a number, it affects every aspect of life, from education to healthcare. Most people assume that debt comes from banks. But in reality, it's a mix of international bodies like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, wealthy nations, and even private investors. As countries borrow more, they end up paying more interest, trapping them in a vicious cycle. It's like a trap, and once you're in it, it's hard to get out. Chapter 2: Money, Power, and the Mysterious Lender. Who exactly do countries owe? Well, it's not always obvious. When countries borrow money, they often do so from a mix of foreign governments, private banks, and international organizations. In fact, the IMF and World Bank are 2 of the largest lenders to developing nations. These organizations often impose strict conditions on their loans, like reducing government spending or cutting social programs. For example, in the 1980s, Mexico found itself in a massive debt crisis. The country owed money to private banks, and when oil prices fell, its economy collapsed. The IMF stepped in, but it didn't just give Mexico money, it gave it a set of rules that hurt the economy even more. By 1994, the country had to devalue its currency, and millions of people were pushed into poverty. It's a classic case of how borrowing can lead to more harm than good. Interestingly, even the US owes a substantial amount of its debt to China. In 2023, China held about $1 trillion of US debt. That's a lot of power for one country to have over another. Some argue that this debt relationship affects global politics, especially when it comes to trade agreements and military tensions. Chapter 3: The History of Debt. From ancient empires to modern superpowers, debt has been around for centuries. In fact, some of the earliest forms of debt can be traced back to ancient Mesopotamia. The Babylonians were among the first to write down debt agreements, and they even had laws to protect borrowers from debt slavery. Fast forward to today, and we still have nations caught in similar cycles, with the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. The Roman Empire famously used debt to fund its vast army and infrastructure. But as the empire expanded, so did its borrowing. By the time the empire collapsed, it was so buried in debt that it could no longer maintain its power. This ancient example shows that debt, when not managed properly, can be the downfall of even the most powerful civilizations. Today, the US faces a similar challenge. It uses its borrowing power to fund its military presence worldwide. But with a national debt surpassing $32 trillion, many experts warn that America's empire may soon face financial collapse, just like Rome did. One financial analyst stated, "History shows us that empires fall not just from external threats but from internal financial collapse." If you're enjoying this deep dive into the global debt crisis, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapters. Chapter 4: Debt in the Digital Age, Cryptocurrencies and the Future of Borrowing. Could cryptocurrency be the future of national borrowing? This is a question that's been gaining attention in recent years. Nations like El Salvador have already embraced Bitcoin as legal tender, while others are experimenting with digital currencies. Some argue that digital money could reduce the reliance on traditional debt systems controlled by institutions like the IMF and World Bank. One interesting fact, China has already launched its digital yuan, and many experts predict that it could change the global financial system. If countries can borrow using digital currencies, it could make the process faster and cheaper. But there's also a downside. Cryptocurrencies are volatile, and relying on them could make countries even more vulnerable to market crashes. That said, blockchain technology could offer a way for countries to track and manage debt more transparently. With decentralized finance, people could see where the money is going and ensure that loans are being used for their intended purposes. But until we see how these digital currencies pan out, most countries will still rely on traditional borrowing systems. Chapter 5: The Debtor's Revolt. Can countries ever escape the debt trap? Can a country ever escape the cycle of debt? In some cases, nations have risen against their creditors and won. In 2001, Argentina famously defaulted on its debt, refusing to pay billions to foreign creditors. This move sparked debates on whether countries should be allowed to declare bankruptcy like individuals do. Greece, on the other hand, faced a similar crisis in 2010. But instead of defaulting, it accepted a bailout package from the EU, which came with harsh austerity measures. This led to widespread protests and social unrest. People didn't just lose their jobs, they lost their hope for a better future. The case of Iceland is unique. After the 2008 financial crisis, Iceland rejected international bailout offers and allowed its banks to fail. Instead, it used its own resources to rebuild, and within a few years, its economy recovered. Iceland showed the world that it's possible to reject foreign debt if a country is willing to take drastic measures. Chapter 6: Who pays the price? The true cost of national debt. Who really pays the price for national debt? The simple answer: everyday people. Countries that are deep in debt often cut public spending to meet their obligations. This means fewer resources for education, healthcare, and social services. In the US, for example, the national debt has led to debates over cuts to Social Security and Medicare, which directly affect millions of citizens. In developing nations, the cost is even more severe. Countries like Zambia are struggling to pay off their debts while their populations face high poverty rates. In fact, a 2020 report found that low-income countries spend more on debt payments than they do on healthcare. It's a stark reminder that national debt doesn't just affect politicians, it hits the most vulnerable people the hardest. In the end, the true cost of debt isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in lives. Countries that fail to manage their debt properly can end up with social unrest, economic collapse, and a generation of people who never see the benefits of growth. If we're going to solve the global debt crisis, it's clear that more than just financial restructuring is needed. We need a system that works for everyone, not just the creditors. If you found these insights eye-opening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with anyone who needs to understand the massive impact of debt on nations worldwide.